Good morning. Hello and welcome everyone to our Family Leadership Panel discussion hosted by Building Bright Futures and our Families and Communities Committee. My name is Sarah Morrison. I use she, her pronouns, and I co-chair this committee alongside my friend Jen Portman. We are both moms of two kids, ages 7 and 5, and we're neighbors living in Lamoille County. The Families and Communities Committee is one of 7 Vermont Early Childhood Action Plan, or VCAP committees under the umbrella of Building Bright Futures. The VCAP committees work toward 4 goals, and our committee is focused on goal number 2, that families and communities play a leading role in children's well-being. Our committee is made up of majority parents and caregivers who are compensated for their time and work alongside public and private partners. Highlighting caregiver voices helps us create early childhood systems that mirror the diverse needs of Vermont families. Our committee provides a safe and welcoming place for families to bring forward thoughts and concerns. Our committee meets twice monthly, one with a focused agenda that is recorded to share with our committee members who are unable to attend, and one is a time to connect in a peer-to-peer support level. We also offer quarterly learning opportunities covering topics such as how to advocate effectively or self-care for parents of young children. We are so excited to see over 75 people registered for today's discussion. We are recording this presentation and will share it with those who are unable to join us live. Please keep your cameras off and microphones muted during our discussion, but we welcome you to turn on video during our Q&A.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Jen. We'd love to get to know you all as well, so please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat with your name, location, what agency or business you are representing, if you're here as a parent, and the ages of your children, if you have any. I'm going to walk us through an outline of today's seminar, the logistics, and then introduce our panelists. We are offering continuing education credits through the Grand Round series for today's seminar for those attending live. Early Childhood Grand Rounds is a convening mechanism BBF uses to elevate and disseminate high-quality data or data-related topics impacting Vermont early childhood sector, data challenges facing our state, and national best practices. It is held by Vermont's Early Childhood State Advisory Council, SAC, Building Bright Futures, and Vermont's Early Childhood Data and Policy Center. We recognize that there are programs, agencies, committees, and councils across the state and the nation that are building welcoming, inclusive spaces where families and parent leaders are influencing program, policy, and system improvements to early childhood systems and services. It is our hope that this session will inform and energize parents, partners, and professionals to continue to break barriers to parent and family leadership. In planning this learning opportunity, we expanded it to be part of the Grand Round offerings. If you included your BFIS number in your registration, please consider this handled. But if you did not provide that BFIS during registration, please enter it in the chat to receive those credits. And we are excited to offer those for today's session. The majority of our time here this morning will be a discussion with our experts, and we are hoping to leave some time at the end for a live question and answer discussion with all participants. We encourage you to post questions in the chat for our panelists throughout the session, and we will get to them as many of them as possible during our Q&A time. I now want to take a moment to thank all of our incredible panelists for taking the time to be here today. Sadia Batul, Anna Sire, and Bryce Starr were connections we made through attending the ECCS conferences in 2013 and 14. It has been really great connecting with you all in person, and appreciate you all joining us. Charlotte Saffron is a local Vermont partner that we all have the privilege of working with pretty regularly. And Jacob Heine Johnson connected with some of our BBF staff through attending NCIT, National Collaborative for Infants and Toddlers webinar. And he does really incredible work all around the nation. At the end of the session, Jacob will share closing remarks and provide recommendations for Vermont on how to expand statewide efforts to enrich family partnership and leadership that represents the diverse needs of Vermont families. So thank you all again for being here. And now I would like to introduce the panelists. have the panelists introduce themselves. Can you please tell us your name, if you have children, the state you are from, the organization you're representing, and just a little bit about your role and the work you and your organization are doing related to family leadership and engagement. Sadia, do you mind starting?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jen. Thank you for the invitation. I've really appreciated those in-person and virtual opportunities to connect with the Vermont team and most importantly, learn from all the great work you're doing. So I really appreciate this invitation. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sadia Batul, and I am from Lancaster County here in Pennsylvania. I am a parent of a wonderful 10-year-old who brought me to the world of early childhood systems and family leadership. I'm a physician by qualification, but my life-changing experiences of receiving early intervention services and family leadership supports for myself inspired me to make a career transition. And I now work with the Pennsylvania Office of Child Development and Early Learning, which is a unique office here in Pennsylvania because it is supported by the Department of Education and the Department of Human Services. I serve as the Early Childhood Family Lead for Pennsylvania's Early Childhood Comprehensive Systems, or the ECCS grant. And family leadership is an integral part of the work that we do here in ECCS. And I also want to share that it is the work that we are building off of the great legacy and the ripple effect that has been created in Pennsylvania for decades around family leadership. And I'm really excited to talk more about it as we go into the panel discussion. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Sadia. Anna?
Hi, my name is Anna Sear. I am the proud parent of 2 grown adult daughters who brought me into the family leadership world. They have a rare genetic disorder that led to a lot of advocacy on our family's part, and that morphed into the work I'm doing today. I work at the Maternal and Child Health Department at the Maine CDC. I am the family lead for the Early Childhood Comprehensive Systems Grant. I am the family delegate for the Association for Maternal and Child Health Programs. And I am also on the board of directors for the National Family Voices organization, who works on behalf of and advocates for families of kids with special health care needs. My position itself is an accomplishment that might not have happened if it hadn't been for the Early Childhood Comprehensive Systems Grant, but my position has expanded, I'm happy to say, and will be sustained even after that grant is finished through Title V, and that is huge. Our goal is to elevate family voice throughout state systems, but particularly within maternal and child health domains. I think that's about it for now.
Thanks, Anna. Bryce?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to join in on this conversation with such amazing people in such accomplishing areas throughout the country, really. So it's nice to be able to connect on a virtual level and hear what other states are doing and also share what we're doing. So once again, my name is Bryce Starr. I'm the project coordinator for the Missouri Maternal Health Action Network. We are funded directly by the Title V MCH block grant through the Department of Health and Senior Services. We have a unique standpoint. We're also implanted in the University of Missouri, Kansas City and the Institute for Human Development. So I work in the Maternal and Child Health Department, and this is my project that I get 100% time on. It's an amazing project. We work to improve behavioral health outcomes for mothers, children, and families affected by perinatal substance use. We've really expanded how we function to have an advocacy network, which is completely run and incorporates lived experience at an equal level with our action network, which work to create recommendations and strategic action plans to address gaps, barriers for either systems collaborating to provide services, or for the mothers that are really facing issues with navigating or accessing services, or just lack of resources due to rural and urban areas, or just the vast diversity in how Missouri kind of is built and how we kind of lay out across the topography. I'm located on the Kansas side where I live, but I work on the Missouri side, which is always really fun because you get to see the differences between 2 states and how they just function, you know, within 2 miles of each other. But the work that we do here, it's important. We incorporate mothers' voices, families' voices, children's voices. We believe in building capacity, building opportunities and leadership opportunities, and working towards a pathway for lived experience to become a career and be able to help and address health issues from the lived experience perspective. So we've grown a lot in the past couple of years. I've been here for my year anniversary was July 10th. And within that year, we've really expanded and grown in a lot of different areas. So I'm excited to talk about that today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Bryce. Charlotte?
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Charlotte Safran. My pronouns are she, her. I am here in Vermont. I work for the Vermont Department of Health. I'm the Family and Community Partnerships Program Manager. And then I'm also founder of the Partnership Collective, which is a consulting firm that supports organizations in building out family partner programs. I'm here mostly to talk about my work with the Department of Health, though. Really, a lot of my focus is supporting our Division of Family and Child Health from moving beyond family engagement over toward partnership, moving along that spectrum toward power sharing and partnership, and really using an equity lens in the work that we do. A lot of what I've been doing, I've been in this role for about a year and a half now. Before I was just a consultant, and now I'm full-time. Really what we're doing is providing a lot of training and support to internal teams regarding their anti-racist journey and how to cultivate spaces of belonging for family partners. Happy to say that we have now approximately 100 family partners working actively with the Division of Family and Child Health, and they are all compensated. So thanks so much. Really, really happy to be here.
Thanks, Charlotte. Jacob?
Hey, greetings, everybody. Super glad to be here with everyone and talking about family and parent leadership. My name is Jacob Penny Johnson. I am here in Southwest Michigan, and I am the father / co-parent of an 11-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son that I just dropped off to summer camp. And I'm working as a consultant trainer with the National Center for Family and Parent Leadership, which is housed here at the Early Childhood Investment Corporation and is funded by the the Pritzker Children's Foundation, and really is all about sustaining the work of family and parent leadership. And so oftentimes we know that parent leadership can be a requirement when certain grants come and go, but our work is really about supporting system leaders and initiatives and parent leaders in sustaining the work and embedding the work of family and parent leadership. And so super glad to be talking with you all about that today. I also have a social work background, and also am super interested and have a good deal of experience in supporting fathers within the early childhood system and within the parent leadership space. And so I have spent some time working at our county's, my county's local health department in the maternal and child health unit, supporting new and expecting fathers. And so I also currently support a fatherhood program here in my community called the Fatherhood Network. And so very much interested in kind of connecting the dots with those works. And so glad to be here with y'all.
Thank you so much, everybody, for those wonderful introductions. I'm going to kick us off with question 1, and we invite you to just join in and keep this going as a discussion. So our first question is, what successes or progress have you seen or been a part of? And what promising practices or accomplishments from your state or organization are you excited about?
I'm happy to kick us off a little bit on what we do. So the Missouri Maternal Health Action Network really started back in 2020, 2021. We were built off of an application for a grant through HRSA that didn't necessarily go through. So it kind of was reinvigorated, reimagined, and the Title V MCH block grant funded the initiative. I came in July of last year, so it's been about a year. Joining into the network and becoming a part of the network was amazing opportunity for me, and it was something that I've been looking forward to, I think, my entire career. I've always loved helping people. It's something that's very important to me and I'm passionate about, is being able to advocate for others, but also teaching others how to advocate for themselves and their community. So within our network, we really expanded what we stand for. We have our overarching platform, which is the Missouri Maternal Health Action Network. And within the giant umbrella, I like to say, is two different networks. We have our Action Network, which is system leaders, CEOs, organizations, community-based organizations, grassroots organizations, people from all across the state that are passionate about addressing the issues that mothers are facing, those with perinatal substance use disorder, the children and the family as well, because we think about it as the children and family unit as well as the mother. We think about things through the life course nexus and how it creates generational trauma and generational issues that we have to be able to address. With that, we also have our advocacy network, which is a fairly new initiative that we launched last year. That encompasses any mother from across the state, any child or family member from across the state that has been affected by perinatal substance use that wants to be a part of the conversation and help address the issue at a statewide level. So our mothers have different levels of engagement. We believe in working at the level or the capacity that you can. First and foremost, these individuals are mothers. They have children. They have special circumstances that they're working with, and they have jobs. They have a life. So we have to be very flexible with that. We also agree that the voice of lived experience is not a tool to be used, but one that is shared, and we need to respect those stories because that story is someone's life. So all of our mothers are compensated for their time as well. We have advocacy representatives. So our state is broken down into 9 regions. We have one mother from each region that kind of puts a perspective of what's happening in the community, whether it's rural or urban. The way that Missouri is laid out, things change drastically from Kansas City, which was where I'm at, and Columbia or St. Louis or the Boot Heel or other kind of rural areas. Just accessing services is very difficult as well. So we like to have a voice that can talk about what's happening in the community. It's a level of engagement that we pride ourselves on, where the voices really get to showcase and be the highlight of this entire network. Of that, we have one mom that is an advocacy leader. The advocacy leader helps to co-facilitate our Leadership and Self-Advocacy Academy, which was recently launched last year. We had 7 mothers go through that cohort, and they are implementing so many changes that we're excited to see as we continue to grow the academy. The academy really focuses on building self-advocacy skills, leadership skills, learning how to advocate for yourself in different aspects of your life, building healthy relationships, building community engagement relationships, how to advocate through either voting or participating in other organizational efforts across the state, also how to access and navigate resources at the statewide level as well as within the community. So that's been a huge part of what we've been launching within the advocacy network. And all of our moms are really glad to be there. It's a support section for us. We believe that peer support is very important in the recovery journey. So some of our mothers, they move, they relocate, they change. Their friendships have changed completely in the past years or longer. And we like to talk about it in the sense of mothers coming together to create change, but also that peer support and connecting. So the advocacy network is an entire beast of its own, but it's something that we're really excited to see really flourish. We are expanding a little bit more into incorporating the voices of children and families, thinking about how we can support families and the youth so that we don't continue to contribute to generational trauma. Things are learned and it goes through the timeline of individuals and their generations. So we want to make sure that we're addressing things. With the system level, our work groups are all based on the SDOH, so social determinants of health. We did an analysis of about 1.5 years worth of data to come up with specific core priorities that are Missouri specific, that our work groups work to address to create state recommendations and action plans. Because we are funded by the Title V MCH block grant through DHSS, the Department for Health and Senior Services, all of our recommendations and action plans are automatically kind of approved as best practices for the state. So that's a unique place for us as well. But we really work with mothers, children, families to identify these gaps, identify these areas. They all have equal playing fields or equal levels of communication. So all of our representatives sit in on the work groups and tell real time if the initiatives that we're working on are going to work and how the individuals seeking the services will be affected versus just from the system capacity level or the system level. And then we also have our mother, who's the advocacy leader. She sits on our planning committee, which is all of the work group chairs, and they help to identify issues and communicate with the work groups as they continue to lead our efforts. So that's a little bit about just the network in whole, I could go on for hours about it, but I don't have enough time necessarily. It would be all about me. So I'm happy to turn it over to anybody else.
Happy to go. I already mentioned the fact that my position is a new one, and I think that that speaks volumes about the commitment to elevating family voice in our program to create a staff position that's called Family Leadership Liaison. But one thing that I'm very excited about is our Maine State Parent Ambassador Program. And this was an existing leadership training opportunity for parents that we were able to expand with the help of with partnering with the Office of Child and Family Services. It used to only be offered to Head Start parents, and now it's offered statewide to any parent of a child 8 or under. It is a year-long training that includes 4 two-day workshops and virtual meetups in between. After graduating from the program, parent ambassadors have the additional opportunity to be on a parent ambassadors alumni group and to continue the work that they've started as parent ambassadors. They can, after a year as a parent alumni, they are also able to become mentors to the new cohort of parent ambassadors. And the workshops themselves include trainings on diversity, equity, and inclusion, storytelling, conflict resolution, and many other topics. And sometimes we individualize topics based on the group's interests. Another thing that I'm really excited about is working with, as an extension of the Parent Ambassador Program, we also partnered with the PDG grantee folks to implement a spin-off of the Parent Ambassador Program called Empowering Immigrant Parents with Young Children. And this is a program in which parents of children in the immigrant community receive training and compensation to provide information on early childhood systems and services to the members of their community via a parent cafe model. That's a very exciting program as well. Another thing I'm excited about is working with a national family leader, Eileen Ferlenza. She's providing technical assistance to us to construct a framework and trainings in implementing family partnerships in programs and agencies. She's an amazing trainer who has had years of experience as a family leader in her state, Colorado, and nationally. And we're still in the discovery phase of our work with her, learning how to work with each other toward a common vision. I'm very excited to continue this work. But we have started to develop a directory of family leaders who wish to partner with state programs in various capacities, in addition to developing a training framework for programs wishing to implement or increase family partnerships. I also provide technical assistance to state programs who are interested in increasing or implementing family partnerships. And I also mentor parents who are already participating in state partnerships, including the parents who sit on the Early Childhood Comprehensive Systems Advisory.
I'm happy to share what's happening in Pennsylvania. And this was a loaded question, so I have divided my response into buckets. So I'm ensuring that I'm covering everything and also making sure that I'm doing that in a timely manner. But I really want to start by, again, saying that this family leadership, has existed in Pennsylvania for decades. And I want to go back in history because as a parent, it really inspires me. The fact that 8 parents in 1949 came together to form this organization, which is one of the largest organizations here in Pennsylvania that supports individuals with disability and families. And it's the ARC of Pennsylvania, which ultimately played an instrumental role in the foundation of the Individuals with Disability Education Act, or IDEA. So, we're really building off of the work our families have done for decades in Pennsylvania. And it's also because of the partnership and the structures that exist at the state level. And oftentimes when we talk about family engagement and especially leadership at the state level, two factors play a very important role, and those are organizational readiness and leadership buy-in. And we're very fortunate in Pennsylvania to have that as well. And what really guides that organizational readiness and leadership buy-in is our very own Pennsylvania Family Engagement Birth through College Career Community Ready Framework. It's a long name, so we address it as the Family Engagement Framework. What's really unique about this framework that it is not only a document that was created for the professionals at the program level, at the local, state, and national level to guide the implementation of effective practices, but there's also a companion piece that was developed particularly for our families. And when we talk about family, we're talking about families who are biological parents, adoptive parents, foster parents, grandparents, aunt, uncle, any adult who's invested in taking care of a child physically and emotionally. What I'm really excited about is the extension of this framework through our ECCS grant, where we are working to develop a family leadership toolkit for our P3 maternal and early childhood partners. Because while we do have definitions within our framework, such as family engagement, parent caregiver, we do not have a definition of a family leader and family leadership. And so sometimes we see family engagement and leadership are being used synonymously, where we know that engagement, when we talk about, we're specifically addressing sometimes that program level engagement. But when we talk about leadership, especially within Pennsylvania, we're talking about engaging families in decision-making tables, whether it's at the local level, at the state level, or at the national level. We have some amazing programs in Pennsylvania, and I might get a little emotional, and you'll see me talking very enthusiastically, because these are the programs that have changed my life as a parent first and foremost. And one such program is the C2P2EI. We love acronyms in Pennsylvania, and P is our favorite for obvious reasons. But it's our Competence and Confidence Partners in Policymaking Early Intervention Program, which is a year-long training program for families of children receiving early intervention birth to 5 services, because we're a birth to 5 program here in Pennsylvania. And this is a program that has produced hundreds of family leaders across 27 years that are not only supporting systems building at the local and state level, but even at the national level. And so what this program is, and I can say from my personal experience, is like you're going to school to learn what the system of services is for your child. I was a clueless parent. I did not even know what an EI stands for. As a physician, I was quick in identifying the red flags for autism, but medicine does not teach you how to navigate the system of services. And this program really helped me to transition from a clueless parent to who I am now as a parent and professional. Another really important program that has been, one of the star programs for family leadership is our P3D program, or the Parents as Partners in Professional Development, which is an initiative to bring families to professional development opportunities to contribute to pre-service learning. This program has evolved over the last decade, and now it's not only limited to bringing family leadership to professional development opportunities, but really bringing families to decision-making tables at the state level, providing them with a plethora of opportunities, whether it's engaging them at state level advisory structures as members. It's also making sure that families are provided with scholarship opportunities, both at the local, state, and even at the national level. Engaging families as partners in opportunities like we just conducted our EI rate study. So this program really helps with that recruitment aspect, because this program maintains a listserv of hundreds of families across the Commonwealth. And so every time we have an opportunity where family leaders are to be engaged as partners, we can share information with those families through this listserv. Another really important thing that I am really excited about is our intentionality to engage people with lived experiences in the workforce. I am one such example. I had absolutely no prior professional experience of even working in the United States as an immigrant. As a physician, I had no clue about the early childhood systems, but the ECCS grant, when it was being written, it was an understanding that whoever would be the family lead would be a person who has that lived experience. So again, and something that I am super excited about is our reimbursement policy. Really making sure families are compensated for their time and expertise is an integral part of the work that's happening at the Office of Child Development and Early Learning, particularly within the Bureau of Early Intervention Services and Family Supports. there is not only a reimbursement structure in terms of the rates for honorarium, childcare reimbursement, travel expenses, there are also structures in place to make sure that those reimbursements are being processed in a timely manner. So having a dedicated fiscal staff person. All of our family engagement opportunities, we have a dedicated family engagement consultant that really makes sure not only supporting families in completing the reimbursement form, which of course for some of our newer families could be a little complicated, even though we try to make it as convenient as possible. I know that from personal experience, but also having dedicated time at these opportunities to really support them in completing those reimbursements. And now that we're in the final phase of approval of our reimbursement policy, we're super excited to be sharing that with our partners at our ECCS Advisory Committee, which is a cross-sector advisory committee that has representation from health, education, human services. So we're really going to be sharing the work that we are doing to support our partners and hopefully, making sure that they are also supporting families when bringing in leadership roles. Another thing that I really wanted to quickly share about some of the work that's happening in Pennsylvania is this idea of supporting families, not only as parents, caregivers, but also as partners in decision-making tables. So when we're bringing families to advisory committees at the state level, there's always an opportunity prior to the actual advisory committee, which is more like a prep meeting. And this is an opportunity that is exclusively designed for families, by family. So we have a core planning team that also consists of family leaders, and the State Interagency Coordinating Council in Pennsylvania has been doing that for decades, and we continually recruit families who are navigating the early intervention system to ensure that we are bringing families who are currently receiving services. So I know that was a lot of information, but this is some of the work that we are doing here in Pennsylvania.
I don't mind going. There's a few things that Sadia said that I think maybe segue nicely into some of the work we're doing here in Vermont. We have developed in partnership with the Office of Health Equity Integration here at the Department of Health. We developed a community engagement, family and community engagement guide or toolkit. And for use like within the Department of Health, again, really thinking about how might we ensure that there's organizational readiness, again, not just in my division of family and child health, but across the Department of Health. How is their organizational readiness to really partner, go beyond engagement and partner with folks with lived expertise? And one of the, and so we've developed that toolkit, and we provide technical assistance to different divisions across the department. And again, with that anti-racism, leading with race lens, I'm really thinking about what is some of the work and the research that we need to do internally to recognize the harm that a lot of these government systems have done to certain communities. So instead of immediately reaching out to families, really a lot of my work has been really ensuring that there's some recognition of the harm that's been done, and some really intentional relationship building with communities that have been harmed. So really excited about that work. That's kind of again, like kind of very big picture in some of the work that I do. And then similarly around compensation. So here in Vermont, there's a central Department of Health, and we kind of sit under the Agency of Human Services. So I've been working with some policy folks on creating a Agency of Human Services policy to ensure that we are compensating folks with lived expertise across across our departments. I think in early childhood, in pediatrics, in youth services, often in the grants, you know, there is some money for compensating folks with lived experience. And we're really trying to expand that to say, when there isn't that grant money available, how might we ensure that we make it a policy, and then we really support folks in doing some financial projections around what might your budget be for always including folks with lived expertise. So really excited about that work that's happening. So that's really big. And then like on a much more granular level, I'm really, really proud of some work that we did with BIPOC youth who are Black, Indigenous, and people of the global majority on a photo narrative project. Now, again, I know that's not in the early childhood realm necessarily because these are youth, but really just wanting to highlight that idea of bringing in youth voice and being intentional about ensuring that folks who aren't necessarily usually at the table, their voices and their stories are highlighted in ways that they find useful and affirming. So instead of inviting folks to really white spaces and to like government run meetings, ensuring that we're actually going the other way and meeting people in spaces, in community spaces where they feel comfortable and they feel like they know that they have power. And that's been some really interesting and fun work to be decentering my whiteness and thinking about where our families who we don't usually hear from, where are they gathering, and where do they feel empowered and safe.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I'll add on to that, and in line with a lot of what folks said, the National Center for Family and Parent Leadership, again, housed here at the Early Childhood Investment Corporation in Michigan. ECIC has, like others, been doing family and parent leadership work for decades. And through some of the success of that work, had some conversations with the Pritzker Foundation, which some of us may be aware of. Like some folks mentioned, Charlotte, a lot of grant requirements are asking for organizations and institutions to have lived experience parent leaders as a part of the work. And so a lot of our work is supporting states, system leaders, and agencies in doing exactly that. I was hired on, my position is consultant and trainer, but I was hired on with that term, kind of lived experience parent leader. And so again, I have 2 young children in the state of Michigan. I have received public services within our state. And again, just lifting up that idea that we need parents who have gone through the systems and services, really helping to lead and direct. This idea of power sharing and empowerment is so important. And so our work at the National Center is really about that. And really, again, like I mentioned, kind of trying to sustain the work. And so we launched and started to pilot the National Center for Family and Parent Leadership about 3 years ago. And so we'll share a little bit more, so I won't go too in, but a lot of our work is about kind of building out frameworks and models around family and parent leadership. What is the difference between a parent advocate and a parent leader, and starting to kind of define that? What are some of the pillars of parent leadership? What is the continuum of parent leadership? And really addressing the work as like a 2-pronged approach. And so by that, we mean like supporting states and system leaders in understanding the importance and the need in embedding family and parent leadership, compensating parents, going to parents like folks mentioned, going beyond our kind of idea on what a parent leader is and who has the resources to show up and be in spaces and lead. And then the other prong is like building up parent leaders. And so really supporting parent leaders to show up in spaces with system leaders, maybe private business folks, and to be able to share their voice and advocate in a strategic, meaningful way. And so there's so much to share. And one of the things that I think I'm super excited about that we've just kind of been working on this past year is an initiative called Who's at Your Table? And shout out to Sadia, who is also a part, or Pennsylvania, this state of Pennsylvania was a part of this. And so what Who's at Your Table is and was is a 9-month capacity building series for states to embed family and parent leadership. And so we just finished that up in June. And for the past 9 months, we have had 6 states, Arkansas, Arkansas, Nebraska, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Washington meeting on a monthly basis and talking about different aspects of how we embed family and parent leadership. I think that's been beneficial for many reasons, but one of the benefits is just getting different states together. Across the nation, we are on a huge spectrum of how states and institutions are really buying into family and parent leadership. And so I think there was great benefit in having different states and system leaders in kind of saying, oh, well, where are we at? What can we be doing more? And then also kind of using that as an advocacy piece, right? Like, hey, this isn't just Sadia in Pennsylvania saying we need to do this. We actually have folks in Arkansas, New Mexico, and other states who are saying this is the way that we need to authentically engage parent leaders. And so that's been super great. And I'll share more a little bit about our pillars of parent leadership and a few other highlights here as we move along.
Great, thank you, everyone. We're off to a great start. We'll move on to our second question. What strategies do you find most effective in recruiting family leaders? What methods have you found most useful in overcoming barriers to including underrepresented families or marginalized voices?
I can speak again. I'll just every time. We kind of like some of the other organizations that have been talking, we're fairly new. So I think last year we really viewed things as our pilot year, especially with the new structure that we have incorporating the advocacy network as well. So we're still in that process of really gaining the buy-in. We have over 300 members that are at the systems level, provider level capacity. And then we have about 45 mothers with lived experience from across the state. When it comes to engaging the mothers, we really try and provide a safe space, a welcoming space. Our mom advocacy representatives from across the state sit in on all of the things that we do. They provide that sense of understanding from the lived experience way. We really try to push that this is not just a story, it's someone's life. And we need to be respectful of that, and we need to learn and grow from that. We don't need to be offended by stories that people are telling us or real life experience that people are telling us, because the issues that people are relaying are the issue. Not everybody can necessarily agree with that. Sometimes we take things personal, especially in organizations where we're trying the best we can. Everybody knows that the capacity can be too high or the funding can be too low. So I think when it comes to buying in lived experience, it's not necessarily treating it as buying in, it's treating as providing that avenue for individuals to come in and share their stories with the individuals that can make the decisions. So all of our mothers that we work with, all of our children and families that we work with, they're here because they want to make the difference, but maybe they don't have the tools. They're here because maybe they need resources, but they don't know how to navigate them. So it comes back to a level of engagement. Some of our mothers just want to receive our quarterly newsletter about what free events are around or services or initiatives. Then we have another level where our mom advocacy representatives really want to learn how to advocate for themselves, advocate for their family. How do they connect with organizations to drive the conversation, which really pushes the change that we want to see at the system level or the state policy level? With our mom advocacy leader, they're really a mentor to all the mom advocacy representatives. So making sure that moms that are coming into the network are met, they're talked to, they're talked to about the things that they're facing and the issues that they're facing. We try and connect them with as many services as we can. Our Leadership Academy is one of the services that we really offer. Other than that, we really try and utilize the services in the state that already exist. We don't want to duplicate efforts. We want to be mindful of what's already happening in the state and just increasing that awareness. After last year, which is really a pilot year, we're looking at our 5-year strategic plan. We are renewing our grant for 5 years through the Title V MCH block grant, which is really exciting for us because we get to see what did we learn and how are we going to use that to continue to grow. So with our lived experience, it's not only about sharing the story, it's about providing the opportunities, capacity building opportunities, leadership opportunities, developing that pathway for lived experience to be a career, whether that's sponsoring mothers to go through doula training, community health worker training, peer specialist training, really trying to build that peer specialist network across the state that can help with lived experience that maybe are experiencing similar issues or need the guidance. A lot of our mothers are interested in that. They want to be able to utilize that lived experience. And not only does it improve their economics, but it improves their family, improves their mental health. It kind of you start to see that impact at that generational level as well. When you're not just helping the mother, you're helping the family, which helps, the health overall. So we've seen a lot of growth in those areas. We really want to continue to connect our moms with organizations. So we are in a unique place. We have a lot of the system leaders from the Children's Division or other aspects of the state that are part of these conversations, and they get to work directly with the mothers. They get to work directly with the families and the children and really hear the issues that they're facing, hear how maybe substance use affected them, it affected their parents, it affected their children, thinking about how not only it affects the individual, but maybe their child lost their life to substance use. So seeing that generational connection and how we can start to increase or improve those behavioral health outcomes at the family level, at the mother level, the child family unit, thinking about how we can support the family as well. That's a big piece of what we're trying to incorporate more of. We work with different organizations like Postpartum Support International, different organizations like Parent League around the state, Kids Win Missouri, to really drive the connection to other advocacy agencies and organizations. But we really want to connect the mothers to drive that conversation with organizations, sit at the table. It's not just about building yourself up. It's about building yourself up so you can take the responsibility of advocating for yourself, your family, and making the change that you want to see. And it's providing that opportunity to our mothers. So we are in a unique spot. I feel like they're working directly with the systems, but also working directly with the mothers. And we're an ever-changing organization that I feel over the next 5 years will continue to learn and grow. And we take the feedback from our mothers very seriously. So all of their feedback shapes the network. I like to say the network is run by lived experience for lived experience. And we're really trying to set the precedent of how to integrate lived experience to drive systems change. We were really, we had an amazing opportunity to present at AmChip 2024 this past April, and we were able to show our model of integrating lived experience to drive systems change. So we're really working to continue to grow that and thinking about how we're compensating and providing the opportunities to our mothers and what impact that is really putting out there.
Go for it, Sadia.
Thank you. I'm happy to share some of the recruitment strategies we're employing, especially within the Early Childhood Comprehensive Systems of the ECCS grant. Earlier, I talked about the P3D initiative, which maintains a listserv. That program is primarily for families of children receiving early intervention services, but with the ECCS grant, we're expanding family leadership opportunities to families who are either pregnant or parenting of children ages birth to 5, and irrespective of the program that you are representing. So I think one of the most effective strategies that has worked wonders for some of our family leadership opportunities within ECCS has been leveraging the connection that our partners at the ECCS Advisory Committee, which again is a cross-sector advisory committee with representation from state and non-state agencies representing health, education, human services, community partners, and most importantly, our family leaders. And the data has been really reflective of the support they have provided in dissemination of information for all of our recruitment opportunities, whether it's bringing families to the advisory committee. We did a photo project last year because here at OCTL, we really make sure all our publications, reports, have photos of real Pennsylvania families, because that really helps us to remember the why and who we are working for. And we launched that application. We had 28 spots for 4 areas across the Commonwealth. And for those 28 spots, we received 573 applications. Now, if you think about the ECCS team itself, we're a 2-member team. We have immense support from our department, but we're 2 staff members that work on this grant. And we do not provide direct services to families. So of course, we don't have direct access to families also. But it was through our partners, and this was reflective in the data because we asked a question, how did you hear about this opportunity? And I will say more than 65% of families said, we heard from our early childhood provider. And then there were some that said we heard from our maternal health provider or from my health provider. So the power of those professionals that are working directly with families, which again, if you think at the state level, we do not have access, and the access is only through our partners who, support those programs and ultimately support those families. So that has been very helpful. But when we ask or request our partners to share recruitment announcements, we really make sure that we are providing them with the materials to not only support them in better sharing those announcements, but also ensuring consistency across the information that's being shared through these different partners. And so we really develop materials such as what information would be shared directly with families, what information would be shared with the professionals that will be then sharing with the families, any attachments to go. We really make sure that any information about financial compensation is detailed on the recruitment. So families are making an informed decision. If I'm signing up for an advisory committee where the term commitment is, let's say, 2 years, what am I going to be receiving as financial compensation, whether it's the honorarium or reimbursement for childcare, any travel expenses, all of that is very detailed, in detail laid out on the recruitment announcement. And then your question, the second part of the question that talked about overcoming barriers. While we have some great connections with our partners, we have received a lot of support in terms of recruitment. We acknowledge that no system is perfect, so there are definitely areas of growth, especially bringing marginalized families or families that have been underrepresented at state level family leadership opportunities. And one of the ways we are hoping to overcome that is through a scoring rubric that we have developed is in this ECCS work that really ensures that the diversity of Pennsylvania is reflected in our recruitment. And for ECCS, we are defining diversity as differences in identity such as race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, disability, and most importantly, geographic location, because we know services do not look the same across the 67 counties in Pennsylvania. And earlier, Jacob, you talked about the Who's at the Table series, and I really want to give credit to you and your team here, because when we came to one of the sessions that talked about father engagement, we were at a place where we were launching a recruitment specifically for fathers on our state level advisory committee, because that was a need that was identified through various recruitment processes where we were not able to reach to our fathers. And so we launched a recruitment that was specifically for male parents and caregivers, and that rubric really helped us to ensure that we are bringing that representation to our advisory committee. One of the other strategies, which is something that we learned over a number of recruitment efforts, was we have shifted from using the term family leader or parent leader on our recruitment announcements. While here at Octal, we believe every parent is a family leader. It is up to them to choose where they want to exercise their leadership skills, whether it's at the program level for their child, at the local, state, and national level. However, we are not using the term family leader on recruitment announcements because we and again, I'll share this first from my personal experience and then from professional experience. When I was first addressed as a family leader about 6-7 years ago, I was one of those families who said, I am just a parent. I know that's not correct. We are the families. And so we really want to make sure that every parent caregiver sees themselves in these recruitment announcements, because a lot of times we've heard from, especially our program professionals, when we have asked for recruitment support, we've had questions like, are you looking for a paid professional who is doing family leadership work? And we say, no, we're looking for parents, caregivers who are receiving services in your program. So we use the term family representative or parent caregiver. And then as soon as they are onboarded, recruited, we make sure that we're addressing them as family leaders. And that has really helped us ensuring representation on some of our family leadership opportunities, especially our advisory committee. And then with recruitment, I think it's really important to talk about retention, which is another success, I will say, from our ECCS grant. And that is also because of the orientation process that we have piloted this year with the father recruitment that I talked about. Instead of doing orientation as a one and done meeting, because we know that there is a lot that families need to know before they're onboarded, especially at an advisory level, where you are building off of the work that has happened in the past 3 years. So we're now doing orientation as a series of meetings and really kind of making sure the content is distributed across this series, and families also have an opportunity to engage in conversations to inquire more about what is being shared, and also building connection with the newly recruited and the ones that are already existing family leaders on the committee. So these are some of the strategies that we have implemented within some of the work that we are doing in ECCS grant.
Would you like to go?
Hey, go for it, Anna.
Okay. This question gave me a lot of thought. Some of the things have already been mentioned that I came up with, so I won't reiterate those. But in Maine, we're very fortunate to have, well, first of all, it depends on what you're recruiting families for. It dawned on me when I was answering this question, we recruit families for a lot of things. You know, the advisory group for ECCS, we recruit families for focus groups and key informant interviews. We recruit families for various state advisories or panels. So it kind of depends on that, what your recruitment strategies might be. But one process that we repeat quite frequently is Maine is fortunate to have several very strong family organizations, family-led and family-run. So we do tap into those organizations to reach out to families, and they do have access to families that turn over with time too. So, you know, you're not necessarily picking the same family representatives over and over again. Charlotte spoke to this, meeting families where they are as opposed to expecting them to come to you. And one of the things that I think is really important is making sure that any accessibility needs are met, including access to interpretation and translation services, but not limited to that. And I believe Charlotte spoke to this as well. We still struggle with knowing how to overcome some barriers to include underrepresented families whose trust has eroded over time. It doesn't mean that we stop trying. We keep trying to mend that broken trust, but that it took time to break and it will take time to mend. Somebody else spoke to this, but I will reiterate this, making sure that family representatives or family participants in the group have the same access to information that everybody else has. A glossary of acronyms is nice, agendas and materials ahead of time, and a chance to ask questions. And on top of that, I know that this is a challenge, but providing mentorship, Sadia spoke to this about the orientation ongoing, providing some sort of mentorship, checking in with families to make sure they are feeling comfortable and heard and able to speak out. And for our family and for our parent ambassador program, we actually ask individually, what do you need to be able to participate fully in this opportunity? Do you need childcare? Do you need transportation? Do you need interpreters? Do you need any kind of technical assistance to be able to participate in those Zooms? That's not, I know that's not always possible to be that intimate, but when it is, we try to do that. And I think that's all I had that wasn't already mentioned. So thank you.
I don't mind going. Oh, Jacob, did you want to go?
Hey, go for it, Charlotte. Totally okay. Go for it.
Sorry. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, one of the things that I've learned, I'm continuing to learn that really keeps me grounded is rooted in this phrase, moving at the speed of trust. So again, so many of us who live and work in the US, we're swimming and working in a lot of white dominant culture, which tends to be a lot like, okay, we're ready to do this. So like now let's recruit families and let's make sure that we have families from all over. And it feels like it needs to be really fast. And so one of the things that again, with that internal readiness, I try to do with my teams and myself is to pause and to be willing to do a lot of individual work and internal work on researching communities, on researching cultural practices, on thinking about cultural responsivity before we're even asking if we can go there. So moving at the speed of trust and ensuring that we're not expecting harm or trust to be repaired immediately. And doing that takes a long-term and sustained commitment. So that's one of the things that we really try to practice. And then also being really proactive around language. We often refer to folks as family members or parents versus that gendered language of mom and dad. We try to ensure that we proactively talk about the accessibility instead of asking people if they have any accessibility needs, saying like live captioning is available, interpretation is available, like being proactive in naming the accessibility needs. And then something, just to be really transparent, something that I am struggling with and my team is struggling with, and we've been researching promising practice across the country, so maybe you all have some ideas, is how to, like, promising practices for being in meetings when multiple languages are being spoken, or and so multiple interpreters are needed. You know, right now we just have longer meetings so that there's time for interpretation, but we're really curious about that, like ensuring that we have spaces of belonging and everybody can be at the table, and knowing that, like, gosh, having multiple translators and interpreters in a meeting takes longer. So I just wanted to be transparent about, like, that is a current barrier that we're facing. Yeah, I think that is, oh, and one more thing. Again, shifting that idea, shifting that compensation piece from, oh, we'll pay you back for your mileage, or we'll pay you back for your childcare, shifting it from only that to, we're actually compensating you and providing you an honorarium because of your lived expertise. And that has been that's been an important, again, like an important internal shift, like, oh, well, you know, we reimburse folks for their mileage, or we reimburse folks for childcare. Like, well, that's great, we should be doing that. And also we're inviting them to be part of this because of their lived expertise, so we need to be paying them for that.
Thanks, Charlotte. And I feel like I really don't think you all said everything I was going to say. And so what I'm going to do is just share a link here in the chat, which has some resources to the National Center in terms of best practices. And one of those is something I just want to make note of and highlight, and it's called A Seat at the Table. And just lifting up a few things that other folks said. Getting away from this idea when it comes to parent leadership work, that, or anything, right? Like, if we build it, they will come. And the idea of, like, us, the idea of organizations and institutions really investing in this work, so they have staff that look like or are from the communities that we are trying to connect with or serve at some level. And so that's one, like getting away from this idea, if we build it, they will come, like we have to go to folks. And so this idea of outreach and getting to where parents are at, getting away from our desks, out of our laptops, and like really connecting with parents. Folks talked about translation. Another thing that I think I just want to highlight that was mentioned was institution staff really doing our own work, which I heard Charlotte mention. This idea of really addressing our blind spots, which I feel like we all have, in working on those, right? Like we need to understand that the way we've been socialized impacts all of our engagements and relationships. And so really thinking about how that shows up with us when we engage with other family and parents. And so, something I'm just being mindful myself, right, as a male and a father in the early childhood sector, where oftentimes I'm kind of one of a few male identified folks in spaces. And I'm just totally clear that there's a strategic way that I have to maneuver in that space that is acknowledging the historical context, which is something that was also lifted up as we talk about recruiting parents to be a part of these oftentimes state-backed institutions. What harm or repair may need to be done, right? If I'm a parent and I've been engaging with the state and it has not really been conducive or that good, well, when we come up as a part of this, DHS or state agency saying, hey, we need you, we have to understand the historical context on why parents may not jump at that opportunity. A seat at the table is a great kind of new resource that we're rolling out, which is really, and I would encourage folks to check it out. And it sounds like other states and initiatives have kind of similar kind of what I consider matchmaking tools for parent leaders. And so what the seat at the table is, and this is a tool that is open to family and parent serving organizations across the nation, free of cost, can post their parent leadership opportunities, as well as parent leaders kind of posting their profiles. And so when there's kind of like what some have called kind of like a matchmaking site for parent leadership work. And so I'll just stop there, but I think that's a great tool to kind of like formalize how we can continually support parent leaders with different parent leadership opportunities. I'll stop there.
Thank you all so much. This is really fantastic. I've taken a lot of notes, so I apologize for all the looking down I've done. I just want to acknowledge that we're running a little bit behind, so we really want to give a little bit of time to this final question before we move into our closing remarks. But I just wanted to acknowledge that we are pushing up on our 10 limit here. So our final question for you all is, what gaps in supporting family leadership do you wish you could fill or address? What would you aspire to if you had unlimited resources?
I would love to start this. I have been doing family leadership work for 4 decades. And there are still some gaps that I would like to see addressed. I think it would be great to have a family partnership module in the onboarding training of state program leaders. I think it should just be built into the whole orientation for leaders in state programs. I think there should be more family partnership training in general throughout state programs. We actually in Maine attempted to host a cross-agency family engagement work group, and it was more challenging than we anticipated. I think that might have been made easier had folks already received some training in that area. And we haven't given up on it. We're getting some advice around that from our technical assistance person. More family leadership training opportunities for families. We have the Parent Ambassador program in Maine, which is great, but we need many more like it. The Directory of Family Leaders, we're working on that. And I love that a seat at the table idea. Consistent standards for compensation for folks with lived experience. Washington State actually passed legislation that does this, and a group of family leaders in Maine tried to do the same. They were not successful, but they're not going to give up. ongoing support for family leaders, ongoing mentorship, ongoing orientation, Sadia, and ongoing training for providers and agencies who wish to increase partnerships with families. And a dream of mine has always been more family partnerships within healthcare practices. I've seen some really great models in other states and specialty clinics, and I would love to see that here as well. Thank you.
I can go ahead and speak. So our pilot year, we've learned a lot, and I think that that's one of the best spots that I could be in our entire organization, is that we are reevaluating what we're doing and how we're approaching things. Going into our strategic planning, we're trying to be very thoughtful of the feedback that we've received, not only from systems, but also from our mothers. So thinking about creating a lot of the standards that you all are talking about, we are working to create the standard on how do we integrate lived experience at a system level? How are we treating lived experience? How are we treating them as mothers and children and families that are just residing in Missouri, and thinking about their needs, thinking about the gaps, thinking about how we can really close those. We are very unique because we have that systems backing, but we're still growing that. We're still trying to work with our system leaders, our CEOs, our organizations to discuss how they plan to really utilize lived experience, and not treating them as that tool, but treating them as individuals that are coming to share very sensitive, very, very, very sensitive stories that are real life. And a lot of them are traumatic. When we think about, the individuals with lived experience that we all work with, sometimes organizations may not look at the trauma that's there, not only the personal trauma, but the generational trauma. And when we have our mothers with substance use that have been affected by, some of them have lost children, some of them have gone through miscarriages, some of them are waiting for reunification. They have backgrounds that include incarceration. They have trauma with birthing trauma. They have trauma with their providers. There's bias, there's stigma related to what they face just with substance use, and then being a mother. Some of them are on MAT or medical therapy as well. And the methadone therapy is very controversial right now. Can you be on MAT therapy and regain custody or have custody of your child? What does that mean? So we work to address things, especially within our work groups, at a policy level, a state policy, a systems level, but we also try and think about how we can improve just the daily life of our mothers and our children and our families in this state. So a lot of the gaps that we try and close aren't necessarily specific to just mothers affected by perinatal substance use, but it's issues that everyone's kind of facing in Missouri. There's a lack of provider availability in rural areas. There's a lack of education. There's a lack of opportunities. There's not really a lot of opportunities out there for individuals that maybe haven't graduated from high school to be able to find a career. Or how do you sponsor mothers? How do you work with mothers to lift them up and provide that avenue for them to be able to share their stories and create that change? So we're really looking at all of the gaps that are out there. We're thinking about how we can incorporate that and treat humans as humans to create the change that we want. So thinking about the trauma, we look at everything as a trauma-informed lens. I am a male that works in maternal and child health, and that is definitely the minority in that aspect. And I try and also think about how I'm presenting myself and how the stories and the situations that I've gone through are going to be very different from some of the situations that a mother that is raising 3 or 4 children and has been affected by perinatal substance use, maybe lost a child. I have to be very mindful and open that I do not understand those experiences because I haven't gone through them, but I can be empathetic. I can be sympathetic, and being open to learning what that experience is like helps how we approach it. It helps how we shape that framework on how do we integrate the lived experience, how do we work with the lived experience. And within the state of Missouri, we are really working to create those standards, to create those best practices, not only for how do we work with lived experience and incorporate their voice, but also what are we doing wrong in the state that's really impacting individuals on accessing services, navigating services, receiving those services, or even eligibility requirements. There's so many issues that affect someone, whether it's language, lack of internet, lack of transportation, we think of nutrition. So we look at it at an all-encompassing lens, but we really are reevaluating how that is. We want to recruit individuals based off of their passions. We want to be able to provide the best opportunities. The recovery journey is very sensitive, so we have to make sure that we're approaching it with peer support, family support, peer support groups, family support groups. We increase awareness and information, really trying to focus how we are coming across. And we take the buy-in from our mothers, we take their knowledge, and we take it very serious. So if they give us a suggestion, and most of the time that suggestion is going to be put into action. We do not take anything that a mother will ever say to us as just them telling feedback. We take it very serious because we believe that by taking that serious and making those changes, we are leading as an example in the state.
I'm happy to go next. I'll start by saying that this was one of the toughest questions to answer because yes, we have, great family leadership here in Pennsylvania, but again, we know that no system is perfect. And the reason I am who I am as a parent and as a professional is because of family leadership. If it was not the local professional who provided me an opportunity to sign up for a scholarship for a state conference, or the state family engagement consultant who connected me to the P3D program, I would not be the parent I am for my child and would not have transitioned from a family who was barely surviving to a family that is now thriving and looking forward to a better and brighter future for our daughter. So I think based on that experience, the biggest gap that we have also heard back in 2022 when we conducted a needs assessment for our system asset and gap analysis is the invisibility of family leadership opportunities. While these family leadership opportunities are readily available to all families, but how many families know about this? So my biggest, if I had unlimited resources, my biggest wish would be that every family has access to these family leadership opportunities, whether it's at the local level, at the state level, at the national level. And I think to make that happen, what is really important is the 3 C's between the different sectors that support families. And these 3 C's are communication, collaboration, and coordination. So the health sector knows what the education sector has to offer when it comes to family leadership and vice versa. So no matter where the family is entering from, families know that these are the services, these are the family leadership opportunities. Because family leadership is so critical in early childhood, once you get to the school age services, it's a whole new world. But you really need to be the confident and the competent parent for your own child and for the broader community to have a better and brighter future. And if it's not done in early childhood education or, in early childhood systems, it just, it gets even more complicated when you go into school age services. So I really hope that every family has information and access to these wonderful family leadership opportunities that not only exist within Pennsylvania, but across the nation.
I'll go really, really quickly because I know we're running out of time. I also struggled with this question, mostly because I try to be super, super asset and strengths based, but also because I'm like, oh gosh, where do I begin? I think one of the things that I've run across is lack of capacity almost. Like I feel so privileged that at the Department of Health, I'm funded solely through our Title V block grant, right? And so I can think all day long about family engagement, family leadership, family partnership, equity, and like how do we do more of this, right? How do we do more like delivering like bite-sized best practices, bite-sized ways to support other organizations in building out family partner programs or family engagement programs, again, that don't continue harm, but rather like disrupt harm and really share power. So that was one of the things is like, oh gosh, like how do we build capacity? So little plug for my consulting firm that my whole goal is to like help organizations build capacity so that folks so that really well-meaning organizations can build out these programs in ways that they feel good about. So I'll stop there, but gosh, I have learned so much from you all. Thank you so, so much.
Likewise, and I'll just jump in real quick. Great question. There's so much great work happening, and I also feel like we have a long way to go. And other folks mentioned similar things that I was going to mention around capacity and investment in the work. We need more parent leaders who can show up and really fully do the work. And that does require removing some barriers. I think there's this idea, and I really appreciate Bryce mentioning kind of like how we engage parent leaders, and that we don't want to tokenize parent leaders, and that there's some real work that has to go on, and like how we authentically engage parents when we're working on behalf of these systems. And so more investment, more capacity, so folks could do the work. I'll also say, and this is me kind of like a little personal, is father and male engagement. I think there is such a correlation to a lot of issues in our society in the health and wellness of men and fathers. And so that's a whole trail to go down. But I will say, when we can support fathers in being healthy, active, and engaged in the lives of their families, and supporting moms and children, that there is such grave ripple effects. And so I'll also just say that we really, as an early childhood sector, need to think intentionally about that, on how we can engage male identified folks and fathers in this space. In addition to that, yeah, our economic system, right? Like there's whole conversations within private business and our childcare kind of workforce. Some parents, oftentimes the parents who historically have not been showing up, can't afford to show up always. And Charlotte, you were kind of going on that rift a little bit. And so I think there's some issues outside of the early childhood sector that also need to be addressed to really be able to support parents in showing up and leading in authentic ways. And so there's a whole long list, but I'll just say, you know, highlighting other folks, more capacity, more investment.
Thank you all. And Jacob, this leads right into closing remarks by you. And also he's going to mention any recommendations for Vermont on how to expand statewide efforts to enrich family partnership and leadership that represents the diverse needs of Vermont families. So thank you all. And Jacob, I want to welcome you back.
Cool. Thanks, Jen. And if we could, in a few, maybe just if we still have the slides ready, just wanted to share with you all the pillars and continuum around parent leadership. But in doing that, I think a lot of great things were shared. This idea of how do we support we as individuals who are representing institutions oftentimes tied to the state, one, recognize what that comes with when we're a part of an institution that's connected to the state and that potentially has some history. And so I really appreciate Charlotte and other folks kind of mentioning the historical context that parent leaders come to us with. Bryce mentioned a lot about trauma, right? This idea that we are just going to have parents show up with a clean slate and be ready to do the work, and that they don't experience life, like we need to throw that idea away. And when we talk about really authentically engaging parent leaders, I just really appreciate them mentioning that, because sometimes it's easy to get in this line, right? Well, we've got the strategic plan. We know we've got to engage this many folks. And then we got the meeting, and maybe a parent takes 45 minutes to get on because their internet doesn't work or they're on a phone, right? And so like really, really trying to do our best to understand where parents and families are coming from as we're asking them to engage with us. This idea of not tokenizing and kind of going beyond engagement to empowerment and co-leading with parents is something I just wanted to lift up. And so sharing this with you all, if you can see, and this is on our website, and this is just a little continuum, and there's a few kind of similar continuums and frameworks out there. You all may have some, but just thought it was important to kind of share as a follow-up and in connection to a lot of things that were said, that there is a difference in how we engage parents, right? Like we can talk about parent advisors, parent collaborators, and parent leaders. Of course, this could be like wording and semantics, right? Like they could all be interchangeable and mean the same things. But for this purpose, understanding the levels, right? When we talk about parent advisors, we're really talking about parents who are giving input through surveys, focus groups, maybe some interviews, and that's great. And if that's the only role that they're taking, it can kind of feel a little tokenizing, right? Oh, we'll pay you a couple dollars or a gift card and get your voice, and then we're like, we don't hear from you again, right? Collaboration, this idea that we are sitting down at the table, parents, system leaders, and folks are together in the same space, right? Parents are able to advocate and give voice, and we're in shared space. Parents are co-facilitating trainings, serving on boards and giving input in that way, which is great. A little more empowering than advising, have some decision-making power, and that's awesome. But really, ultimately, what we're talking about, you know, end goal, what we want to get to is really parents serving as change agents. And so ultimately what that could mean is like putting us out of a job, right? If we're real with it, right? Like we want to build parent leaders up to take on roles within systems, but also ideally, you know, changing our early childhood system to where it serves parents and families in a way where like maybe all of this advocating isn't needed. That's pie in the sky, right? But the idea of we are paying parents to tell us what we need to do and to help co-lead the work in the strategic plans, right? And so a little bit more, and we've also kind of tied some of these levels to how we can compensate parent leaders, right? And so won't share all that now, but just felt like this was important to share. Sometimes when we talk about parent leaders, we can be coming with different definitions of what that means. And so just want to encourage us all to think about where parents are coming in as in terms of the work, and if there's hope and want for them to grow, how can we support them in really taking on leadership roles and potentially taking our jobs? And so we'll go down a little bit. And again, I think this kind of goes back to some of the conversation around authentic engagement and tokenization, right? Like I have been in situations as a parent leader where I've been asked to serve on a committee or a board, and it was clear that I was there to check a box. And that just doesn't feel good as a parent leader, right? Where it's like, oh, wait, I've got some ideas and some voice, but y'all really, I don't think want to hear that. Y'all just want to say that you have a parent leader on board and check a box. And so like, we don't want to be those people at all. And if we can go down a little bit, and I won't go too deep into this, or to the next slide rather, this is also what we call our continuum around embedding equity-focused family and parent leadership. And so again, deepening this conversation, like we can have different ideas and we can be bought in and say, yes, we need to embed family and parent leadership. But this is just a way that the National Center talks about how we get to that point, right? And that in addition to a lot of things that we've talked about, it really takes buy-in from internal staff, right? Like we really need to have some heavy conversations around how much are we invested in this family and parent leadership work? And then we need to increase our internal goals and be ready for when parents come to us and maybe they've experienced some trauma in their life. Maybe they're coming to us with some trauma and harm, like was mentioned before. How are we ready to deal with that? Are we ready to support parent leaders in removing barriers so they can fully be present? How are we recruiting and preparing to support parent leaders for success, right? It's one thing to say we want to engage parent leaders, but are we really doing the internal work to be prepared for when they come in, and how can we support them in being successful as possible? One thing that I think was noted, and I'm not sure if it was Anne or Charlotte, was like transparency and information, which I think is super important. Sometimes we ask parents to come and say, hey, we're going to give you some power. You're going to be on this board. But they've maybe never seen a budget. They've maybe never seen the strategic plan. And so like transparency and information with parent leaders is huge in being real and upfront, and like how much are we really willing and ready to kind of transfer some of this power. And so I want to encourage folks, because I see it's 11:30, to check the rest of this out on our website and some of our other great resources. I think there was so much great information shared here. And so I don't necessarily know that we have a time to reiterate everything, but I just want to appreciate the fellow panelists. One way that I would encourage Vermont to think about ways to continue to embed the work is reach out to the National Center for Family and Parent Leadership. We have office hours that are free, and so if there's questions ever, we have 30-minute office hours that are available for any partners who have interest or questions, and if we can support you, we will. And if there's opportunity for ongoing work, we are always here for that conversation. But in addition, we are actively, well, I shouldn't say actively, we are gearing up to launch our next Who's at Your Table state cohort series. And so would love to follow up with maybe folks who are interested in potentially being a state team who could engage in that maybe in the future. And so I don't want to take any more of our time, but just want to say thank you to everybody for being here today and to the fellow panelists.
Sorry, I had to find my mute button. I also want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you to our panelists and everybody who was able to attend. This was such a wonderful discussion. I really appreciate sharing such inspiring ideas on engagement. Of course, this discussion is ongoing, and we'd love to welcome you at any of our Building Bright Futures tables if you're local here in Vermont. In the future, you can feel free to reach out to myself, Jen, or our Family Leadership Coordinator, Tanya, with any questions or to engage with our committee specifically in the future. If you're interested in engaging with other parts of Building Bright Futures, we'd be happy to make those connections for you as well. I did not notice any questions coming in through the chat, but if you're able to stay on and you had any specific questions, we'd love to welcome anybody to come off video and maybe raise a hand to ask questions to our panelists or to myself or Jen or Building Bright Futures.